Number 1. A couple of days ago, myself and a couple of friends went to a large city for a concert. We booked a hotel just a few minutes from where the concert was supposed to take place. But 2 days before the trip, it was moved to another venue, across town, and there was no time to change our hotel. It was now about a 20-minute drive across town to get there in a city we were unfamiliar with. We decided it would be easier to use the Uber app for the first time and get a ride with someone who most likely knew where they were going, so we wouldn't have to worry about it. I was a little hesitant about it. The idea of riding with a random stranger who just downloaded an app and decided to be an amateur taxi didn't sit well with me. But it was a lot cheaper than a taxi, and none of us had much cash on us, so it was really our only option. Things started out well enough. We booked the ride. The guy showed up within minutes, and we all piled in. He was nice enough, and we made some small talk for a bit. Then we got to a residential neighbourhood, and he tells us we're here. There was nothing even remotely close to a concert venue in sight. He tells us that we must have entered the address wrong, and we looked it up ourselves and showed him that we most definitely did not. We are on the completely wrong side of town. He gets pissed, reprograms his GPS to the correct location, and tears off. No longer driving cautiously, and no longer friendly and talkative. About half an hour later, we are finally nearing our correct destination. We are following along on our own phone's GPS now, and he misses the exit on the freeway. Instead of doing what a normal person would and continuing on, taking the next exit or letting the GPS recalculate, he stops on the highway and looks at his phone to try and figure out what to do. He then turns on his flashers and throws the car into reverse on the interstate, like he's going to back up and take the exit. Needless to say, a car comes screeching to a stop behind us, barely missing us. Unfortunately, the car behind them did not. I will never forget the sound of the people behind us screaming as the back end of their car came up off the ground. They were hit so hard. Then the guy tells us he doesn't want any trouble and drives off. At this point, we were just telling him to take an exit and let us out. When he does so, we realise we're on the correct street and about a mile away from the concert. So we go ahead and have him take us the rest of the way. We couldn't get out of the car fast enough. We all stood there, dumbfounded, and eventually decide we need to talk to the cops. Luckily, there was one working at the concert, so we gave him what information we could, but it wasn't much. He basically told us, since the guy wasn't physically involved in the accident, even though he caused it, that he wouldn't be in trouble for leaving the scene. My friend, who ordered the ride, was looking at his app to see what options he had to report the guy to Uber, and noticed he had charged us double for all the extra driving that was entirely his fault. Pretty much ruined our evening and our Uber experience. We were terrified to take another on the way back, but didn't have much choice. Luckily, the ride home was great. The driver was friendly and professional, and had us back at the hotel in 15 minutes instead of the 45 minutes of hell we had to endure on the original trip. So, crazy Uber driver, let's not meet again. Number 2. On Monday, my high school band of nearly 300 people travelled 4 hours to go to the state marching band competition. Because we have so many people, stopping for lunch was quite a fiasco. It took everyone about 2 hours to get our food, although the servers were doing their best. Most of them, anyway. After about 30 minutes of waiting in line, I sat down with 5 of my friends. one of which, Sally, had to pull up a chair to our booth and sit at the end of the table. This left her with her back to the rest of the restaurant and somewhat exposed. However, she didn't mind. She joked that she felt important sitting in front of us, a queen among peasants. After we sat down, I collected everyone's trays, as to make more room at the table. I was going to return them when a waiter stopped me. He was a middle-aged, overweight, awkward, but polite-seeming man. "Can I get those trays for you ladies?" he asked. I noticed that he never stopped grinning while he was speaking to us. Not a fake waiter smile. It was unsettling. Still, I handed over the trays and thanked him. "Of course," the waiter said, and stood staring. He lingered a little too long, and then left, still grinning. I sat back down, shared an uncomfortable smirk with my friends, and tried to eat my less than appetizing food. Every few minutes, for a full 3 hours, the waiter would return. Sometimes he'd ask us if we needed anything. Other times, he'd just smile and stare. We were polite, but felt very awkward. At one point, he came over to us and whispered, "It's so crowded in here. I wish it was just you," and promptly dropped the plates of food he was carrying. By then, we were ready to sneak off to the buses, just to avoid him. After cleaning up his mess, we went back to the kitchen area. Much to our dismay, he soon returned with a pitcher of water. Now, this restaurant had a soda machine that could go for a refill any time. I silently wondered why he had brought us water when we could have gotten it ourselves. With 290 other people to worry about, this was far past the point of chivalry. "Need any refills?" he asked, already filling up our cups. Actually, Sally exclaimed. The waiter had suddenly jerked the pitcher of water towards Sally, knocking over her cup and pouring it all over her lap. "Oh no," he said with a creepy smile. "Let me get that for you." He tried to wipe the water off Sally's lap, so she leaped out of her seat and ran to the bathroom. The rest of us sat in shock. The waiter gave an awkward chuckle and left us, this time for good. Edit. This particular restaurant was set up like a cafeteria. You didn't order from the table, so there was no need for a waiter to return to the table excessively. Also, he had asked us multiple times if we wanted a refill, and we always declined. The fact that he brought us water and began pouring it on our cups, after we had asked him not to, while there were 300 other high school kids causing problems, was very strange. While he was pouring Sally's water, the pitcher did not slip or fall. He jerked his hand violently, making it seem intentional. Number 3. Now, this is my first time posting, and much of the details of stuff that happened have been jogged by the article that I've linked at the bottom. As such, this won't be super long, but I'll try to string it together in a concurrent post. I also apologise if this doesn't fully adhere with the guidelines of the subreddit. To set the scene, I feel the need to clarify a few things. Firstly, this happened in about 2010. Secondly, me, my older brother and my mum had just moved up north from London after a divorce, due to most of my mum's family living in the general area. Unfortunately, we didn't have the money to buy a house, so we ended up in council accommodation. As soon as we saw the street alarm bells started ringing, it was the sort of street the drug dealers live on, and, As myself and my brother would soon find out, all the local school bullies lived on. Almost every house had garden walls that were either broken or non-existent, and the houses themselves were generally unkempt, and we couldn't simply up and leave, as we were placed there by the local council, and according to them, it was totally safe. So time passed by, and we settled down into somewhat of a routine, if you could call it, having all sorts of getting dumped on your doorstep as a prank, including tar and weed. This was made worse by the fact that I was often the target for all the school bullies, seeing as I was a shy kid who preferred to stay out of everyone's way and avoid conflict where possible. Not that that helped, as here in the northeast, people from down south are regarded as soft. All of this meant that I blocked most of what happened out, but there's one event in particular that still sticks in my mind. So one day I was in school when I was told I would be heading home early. I found my mum in tears, and during the car ride home, she explains that the man next door had killed our pet. This sick bastard had trapped the cat in a shed, set his dog on it, and then praised the dog. He even showed his kids what he had done. What the fuck? And then he had the gall to blame us for it, saying that we shouldn't have let it roam free. Eventually, the man was convicted for his crimes, though he should have gotten longer, and I've moved on then. Moved to a better part of town, and I've even made some friends. And no, I don't blame the dog. So, to the sick fuck who killed my cat, and then showed his kids what he did, let's not ever meet. Number 4. My childhood home was in a relatively small, quaint neighbourhood. On one side of my house was the house of my best friend, and on the other was an old, abandoned barn. The land was supposedly owned by an elderly man who had become too old to care for the property. It had since become a popular spot for teenagers to hang out and party. Often, late at night, individuals would cross the backyard to go to the barn, saving themselves the extra 5-minute walk down the driveway. During the summer nights, my parents would often let me stay out a bit later than school nights to play on my swing set in the backyard. On one occasion, when I was 9, I was out even later as my parents had company over. I was quite happy to be outside after dark and enjoyed spending time with my neighbour. However, after a while, her mother called her inside for the night, as it was getting dark. I decided that I would stay out later and keep playing on the swing set until I was called inside. After a while, I could see someone coming about the barn and walking towards my backyard. This wasn't unusual, as I would occasionally see teenagers walking past, who luckily often ignored me. This person, however, was different. I continued to swing, but I quickly stopped when I realised he was coming directly towards me. When he was about 5 feet in front of me, he stopped and said, "If you tell anybody you saw me, I'll come back and kill you." He brought out what I now assume was either a gun or knife and pointed it at my direction. He then walked off in the opposite direction from which he came. I was terrified. I somehow managed to sprint inside. Due to his threats, I decided it would be best if I did not mention it to my parents and kept it to myself. About 3 weeks later, I arrived home from school, which has since started, to find a police car in my driveway. I noticed that there was yellow tape blocking off the property where the barn was, and to this day, it is the only time I've ever seen yellow police tape in real life. There was a police officer talking to my parents, but he abruptly stopped when I approached. My mother quickly rushed me inside, and I soon forgot about the ordeal, as children tend to. To this day, I still don't know what happened in this barn, or if the man who approached me was at all involved. I haven't been able to find any more information, and my parents don't seem to remember any details. Whether something terrible happened or not, to the guy who threatened me that night, let's not meet again. Number 5. I work in a large building, thousands of employees and thousands of clients daily. I don't want to give away too much because I'm afraid that my building can be identified if I give too much detail. However, our clients tend to have criminal histories. Our parking garage is multiple levels, and when I got to work, I parked at the top level. I saw this guy hovering around, and when I got out of my car, it took me a while to unpack it. My purse, my computer, my work files, my lunch bag, water bottles, etc. When I finally got situated, the man was standing at the trunk of the car to my right. Immediately, I was weary. But I tried to be nice. I asked him if I could help, and he started to ask me questions. Benign stuff, like, do you work here? What do you do here? I answered it generically, and he followed me to the elevator. Into the elevator, and when we hit the ground floor, he walked next to me as I headed for the employee entrance. Once I got there, he tried to follow me in, but I firmly told him, "Clients go around," and pointed. He tried to convince me to let him follow me in, but I told him he needed to go to the metal detectors and shut the door. It creeped me out, but plenty of our clients are creeps, and it was 8 AM, so there are a lot of people around. Around lunchtime, my husband wanted to meet up, so I decided I would eat the lunch I brought for dinner, since I was planning to work late. When I walked to my car, I took the stairs instead. I saw the same man hovering by my car. I wasn't sure what to do. I couldn't find any of the security guards, so I called my husband and asked him to pick me up. When I got back to the office an hour later, I saw this same man wandering around in front of my office. So this time, I went through a different employee entrance and went upstairs. My office is on the top floor, and so I watched him wandering around the front of the office, then wandering through the parking garage area. I had enough by this point, so I paged security and watched as they stopped him, talked to him, and then just let him continue on. Flash forward to 5:30 PM. I used a different route to get to my car, so I could move it down to the first level, and I see that dude again as I walked back towards my office. He's talking to a security guard, so I run back to the building. At 9 PM, when I'm getting ready to leave my office, I look out the window, see my car, and see the same man leaning against my trunk. I walk out with 3 of my co-workers, and we stop at security to walk us to our cars. The guy sees us and quickly walks away. I'm pretty freaked out because the guy knows where I work and knows what I drive, and he spent the entire day hovering by my car or my workplace. I was also really mad at security. Like, I get we deal with a lot of crazy people, but I feel like I should at least be able to walk from my car to my office and back again without hiding behind bushes and shit. I'm klutzy as fuck and feel its teeth. I told the people above me, but they don't give a shit. Apparently, I should have ensured there was a warm handoff to the party he was there to see. I was upset and told them that if he assaulted me, there would be a hot lawsuit. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. You can also leave a comment below. All feedback, good or otherwise, is always appreciated. If you have any creepy stories of your own, or have any topics that you would like me to cover, feel free to send them in via any of my social media. You can find all links to my social media in the description below. Until next time, guys, make sure you lock your doors, stay safe, and I'll see you next video.